The Art of Being Ruled. Wyndham Lewis. Original publication 1926. 1989 edition. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. Part 12. The Intellectual. Chapter 4. Hatred of Language and the Behaviorist Word Habit. Hatred of the word goes hand in hand with hatred of the intellect, for the word is, of course, its sign. Language is one of the things to be broken up. A stammer, a hiatus, an ellipsis, a syncope, a hiccup, is installed in the midst of the verb, and the mind attacked through its instrument. A great deal of very good work, politically, has been done in that direction. Aside from politics, language has been jolted into life in some cases where it was in decay. But the word has also been set up against its master, the intellect, and a war been invented for language. The intellect has in every case lost ground. Where its instrument, the word, has been made to repudiate and attack it, it has lost ground to its own instrument, and surrendered this and that to language. Language has had unusual power for a moment, thanks to this transaction. But very quickly it has lost caste in its mindless state, and without the control of the intellect, words have tended to go over into music and be broken up. What? Does the Father of the gods wish to take away from men the arts that he gave them in their youth? Is it his intention to deprive them, along with language, of the reason that guides them? These words of Sulpicia convey the sense in which the war against words should be taken, what it is sought to attack behind the word. Behind the word is the mind or reason, which is the metaphysical enemy. In the schools of American psychology, deriving from William James, you find this war of words, or against words, being waged more epically and with more concentration than elsewhere. In examining the tester, or behaviorist tester, at work for a moment, we shall be transporting ourselves to the so-called laboratory where the word is actually being annihilated, or where the mind, the intellect, is being drilled out of it. And Professor Watson is the greatest exponent of behaviorism, and the king of testers. Professor Watson is himself a very clear-cut and perfect type of American agent heroism, or of the typical American gospel of action. He is the most perfect logical product of that process by which in the American world, initiated by the practical, matter-of-fact Anglo-Saxon Puritan stock, the human civilized notions, which up till the beginning of the 19th century Europe retained, its Greco-Roman heritage, have been transformed into an unwieldy and breathless mechanism, from which, quite apart from any theories, behaviorist or other, on the subject, mind is gradually crushed out. There are for Watson two main points of behavior, and two only. And into these two physiologically controllable forms the whole of the human personality is contained. There is no metaphysical or non-metaphysical element of personality. These two forms of behavior are the big and the little, or, as he puts it, those affecting the large musculature of the animal, and those affecting the small. The former, the big, he calls explicit behavior. The lesser, the small, he calls implicit behavior. Stowed away in this second category, hidden in the almost imperceptible muscular movements of the language machinery, are all the mysteries and metaphysics of life. The larynx and tongue, we believe, are the loci of most of the phenomena, i.e. of implicit behavior. For the observation of this there exists no method at present. A man hits you on the head. Either, 1, you respond by striking him back, in which you are giving an example of explicit behavior, or, 2, you go away and think it over, and perhaps 10 years after you approach him again, and return the blow. His blow is a stimulus whose response, your blow, will then be 10 years overdue. Where explicit behavior is delayed, i.e. where deliberation ensues, the intervening time between stimulus and response is given over to implicit behavior, to thought processes. That is, in the example chosen by me, you would have been engaged for 10 years in implicit behavior, or in other words you would have been thinking. Thereby you would have been causing the behaviorist a great deal of trouble, for, pencil in hand, he would have to have waited 10 years for your explicit response. For there ought to exist a method for observing such behavior. But, there is none at present. Now it is this type of implicit behavior that the introspectus claims as his own and denies to us because its neural seat is cortical, and Busick goes on without adequate bodily portrayal. Why in psychology the stage for the neural drama was ever transferred from periphery to cortex must remain somewhat of a mystery. The old idea of strict localization of brain function is in part responsible. Religious convictions are even more largely responsible for it. When the psychologist threw away the soul he compromised with his conscience by setting up a mind which was to remain always hidden and difficult of access. Word habits make up the bulk of the implicit forms of behavior. Now it is admitted by all of us that words spoken or faintly articulated belong really in the realm of behavior, as do movements of the arms and legs. If implicit behavior can be shown to consist of nothing but word movements, or expressive movements of the word type, the behavior of the human being as a whole is as open to objective control as the behavior of the lowest organism. Of all the enemies of behavior, and the behaviorist is not slow to see it, words and speech, next to consciousness, are the greatest. It is in the forest or undergrowth of words that the behaviorist tiger of clear-cut stimulus response, or his futurist maker, can become entangled. The environment in the widest sense forces the formation of habits. These are exhibited first in the organs which are most mobile, the arms, hands, fingers, legs, etc. By this we do not mean to imply that there is any fixed order in their formation. After such general bodily habits are well underway, speech habits begin. All of the recent work shows that these reach enormous complexity in a comparatively short time. Furthermore, as language habits become more and more complex, behavior takes a refinement, shortcuts are formed, and finally words come to be, on occasion, substituted for acts. That is, a stimulus which, in early stages, would produce an act, and which will always do so under appropriate conditions, now produces merely a spoken word or a mere movement of the larynx, or of some other expressive organ. In the mere spoken word which might have been a fine blow in the solar plexus, or a grand sprint for a busso, many good actions are, alas, lost to this world forever. When you think of all the fine actions that have been lost in this way, it makes you feel mad. We live largely, then, in an indirect world of symbols. Thought having been substituted for action, the word for the deed, we live in an unreal word world, a sort of voluminous maze or stronghold built against behavior, out of which we only occasionally issue into action when the cruder necessities of life compel us to. Some of us live in this world more than others, of course. Some of us actually like it. And, a democratic note, what sort of person do you suppose enjoys living in this word world? Words are symbols of ideas, as the old psychology would put it. Some people have ideas, are theorists, highbrows, and so forth, and some, like you and me, are just plain people who prefer deeds to words. That's us, that's our way. What's the use of a word world to us? We're not brilliant conversationalists, or anything of that sort. Speech is of silver, silence is of gold. And this is the age of iron, the age of action. We may not have much to say for ourselves, but we can hit a ball or turn a screw with the best. To hell with mere words. Up behavior. And the devil take the hindmost. Once upon a time our world was nothing but action. It was entirely a stimulus and response world of unconscious behavior. The behaviorist, as observer of action, is frequently baffled in the maze, and even indefinitely held up. This must unfortunately be admitted. So, insensibly, the behaviorist, on account of the inadequacy of his method where the word world is concerned, is driven into an utopian attitude. Like all other animals, the behaviorist animal dreams of a perfect world, for behaviorists, where everything would occur in terms of stimulus and response, immediate, evident, unequivocal, objectively ascertainable, response, and in terms of habit formation. And insensibly he is driven into a dogma of action and into a more or less disguised attitude of impatience with human beings who delay or hold up their natural responses an undue length of time, or who convert them into words. Words are the arch enemies of any behaviorist, comparative psychologist, physiologist, vitalist, or actionist of any sort.